Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Macro Podcast. I'm your host, Douglas Dow. Joining me today is Lieutenant Colonel, if I've got this correct, John Ballenger. Did I get that right?
You
Right,
got
sir?
it. You nailed
Great.
it.
All right. I wanted to make sure I had that right. John, thank you for joining the call. We have a little bit different episode, I guess, today because we're going to talk a little about a different career arc than most of the folks that we come across in our commercial real estate universe. I'd like to talk a little bit about the service and how if even if you're in the military and you're serving, and thank you so much, by the way, John, for your service
Yes.
and what you've done for us for the country. But I want to hopefully delve a little bit into the opportunities that are there for service members and change a mindset thing maybe today. And John, before we do that though, would love to dig into your background and how your military career started and go from there.
All right. Well, hey, Douglas, thank you so much for having me on. It's truly a pleasure. I have loved serving for every minute of my 20 years and feel very blessed to have the experience that I have and just to have the support that I have through family and friends. And man, it's been a journey, and it's been a great journey. So just a quick 30,000 foot overview. Born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Went to school there at Oral Roberts University. And shortly after graduation, 2 months after graduation, joined the Marine Corps and got shipped off to Quantico to start training. Was on an aviation contract, so knew the path that was before me when I started. But fast forward, graduated from officer candidate school and the basic school, and then headed off to Pensacola, Florida.
And can we unpack that a little bit? I don't know that most people understand that arc. So most services, you go to like an officer, either ROTC, the academy, or there's like a 10-week program to get your commission, and generally that's the commissioning time. And is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So I did the officer commissioning program, which is basically graduate from college and then get sent off to officer candidate school, which is a 10-week program, as opposed to a different program where you might come in on an ROTC scholarship or separate your time between school years. So I did it all in one chunk, 10 weeks, and then graduated. And then one thing, like you said, the Marine Corps does differently is all Marine Corps officers go to the basic school where we all learn how to become basic infantry Marines and learn the core skills that is required to be a leader in the Marine Corps.
Now, wait a minute. You're on an aviation contract. They still want you to go to the basic school.
That's correct. Every Marine has the same basic training through the basic school. And it's great because you have a bunch of aviators and lawyers and tank drivers and infantry Marines, all there learning the same thing. So we really get to know the core of Marine Corps support, and that's the infantry man on the ground. So.
And do you remember the OODA loop? The OODA loop was one of my geeky passions. I don't know if you remember much about that, but we're geeking out on that one. I'll tell you what.
Of course, and the OODA loop only became more important to me as I continued through my aviation career. So it is a fascinating principle that is very complex to understand in its intricacies, but very important to understand in the basic form.
Well, I won't drag the audience into that right now. I'm sure we'll come back to that some other day. But I'm fascinated. So you left the basic school and did like ground navigation stuff and all kinds of different platoon leadership type issues and going through that at that point.
Oh yeah, of course. It's land navigation and order writing and planning. Yeah, all that stuff that we all get fairly good at before we leave. And then I went off to flight school in Pensacola, where all Marines, Navy, and Coast Guard pilots start their flight training.
I see. And so it's all everybody starts in a piston single, if I remember correctly. What is it? What was the T6 at that point, or?
Well, at the time, I was flying the T-34.
Oh, sweet. I think so seriously, I'd like to have one of those in my hangar. A T-34 looks like a heck of a lot of fun to fly.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. It's pretty great aircraft to start your aviation career in. So
yeah, it's like, here you go. Here's a nice little T-34 to play with.
absolutely.
Although I'm pretty sure your instructor in the back seat's like, don't play around.
Yeah, they're pretty heavy-handed when you first start off.
Yeah, that's pretty great. And then so ended up selecting helos. And what was your first replacement squadron? Did you go to heavy lift first, or were you in a different aircraft?
That's correct. So yeah, once we graduated from the T-34, I went on to fly the TH-57, which is the helicopter trainer, still there in Pensacola. And then went to HMHT-302, which is a training squadron in New River, North Carolina, where I learned how to fly and the basic skills of flying a CH-53 Echo.
And the CH-53 could haul some pretty heavy stuff, right?
Yeah, I can. I mean, typically we flew around with, 25 to 30 Marines. It's got the capacity of holding 55 Marines, fully loaded combat Marines, but we mitigate that down to a smaller amount just for safety and the sake of everyone involved. But yeah, it's a beast of an aircraft.
And along the way, did the Osprey become an option for you, or you're like, I'm not really interested in going down that road? Or I guess they're really integrating that for the heavy lift mission.
So when I was selecting helos, the V-22 was still not an option. It was coming over the horizon and becoming quickly approaching its service life. But at the time, they were still actually pushing guys towards the CH-46 and still filling positions there. So.
And I guess people don't know, this is a really interesting fact in your career, John. You actually got selected to fly the Marine Corps Presidential Detachment. So literally, when you see the White House lawn and there's a Marine Corps helicopter there, John might have been in one of those aircraft.
It's likely. If you're watching from 2017 to a couple months ago, then yes, it's likely I was in one of those seats at one point in time.
That's pretty awesome. Such an incredible opportunity to be involved in a really awesome mission.
Oh, it was absolutely an honor, Douglas. One of the greatest feelings you can have is serving the administration and making sure that they're safely transported around the world.
Absolutely, and such a incredible. I guess maybe people don't know that. I guess that it's the Marine Corps that actually serves that role, and of course, the Air Force One is quite common and well known. But I don't think a lot of people realize that the Marine Corps actually operates the helicopter detachment.
Yeah, I even have family members that when I tell them I'm flying the president around, they're saying, "Oh, so you fly Air Force One?" So inherently in the name, it's Air Force One and Marine One. So
right.
Yes, the Air Force does service the presidential administration through flying them around in fixed wing assets, whereas the Marine Corps is solely responsible for flying the administrations around in our fleet of rotorcraft.
And John, as your career is winding down, when did real estate really start to enter your radar? As that'd be interesting to get involved in that aspect of things.
Well, traveling around, I lived in San Diego, North Carolina, DC area, Hawaii. I had always been stationed in these very unique places that I had wanted to always visit and live. And we always joked around with people and said that we got to live in these places where everybody always comes to vacation. And as I grew up in the Marine Corps, I would have one or two friends that were continually buying places and houses whether it's single family or multifamily, where they would live. And I thought, man, that's a novel idea. I sure wish I could do that one day. And I never really took the bite out of the apple, and got involved like I wish I would have now.
Mm.
And it wasn't until a couple years ago I had bought my first home in North Carolina as a single family home, and we moved away 3 years later, and I started renting it out as just a long-term rental. And that opened my eyes to so many possibilities, because here I was renting a house in North Carolina. I lived in Washington, D.C. at the time, and it was a very easy thing to do. And I thought, man, no wonder people are doing this. I think I wish
It's
more
pretty
people
cool.
would.
Yeah.
And I wish I had known about this earlier on. And so at that point, it was probably 2014. It was this quick game of how can I catch up as fast as I can. We moved from North Carolina to Washington, D.C., where the market was
Getting pretty crazy by then already, wasn't
it
it?
was going pretty crazy. And so
Yeah.
we had to put a lot into that home there. We did that, but it was really a connection I had made a couple of years back. But my now business partner, Benjamin Myers, he was buying real estate in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He was buying single family, or he was buying multifamily homes, and he was actually renovating them into larger structures and larger homes to really maximize the density that those properties could afford.
Mm-hmm.
And I invested with him on a project, and he took a fourplex and turned it into an 18-plex. Multifamily.
Wow.
And it was phenomenal to see this project take place. And that was really the single piece that turned me into this individual that was just trying to gather as much knowledge as I could. And I just started linking up with people that were doing multifamily, single family, Airbnb, and all these possibilities. And it's interesting with real estate, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, and
Right.
realize how many possibilities there are out there. But that was really the single piece that got me involved and got me into connections where I was investing in restaurants in Washington, D.C. Now, single family and short term and syndications and the various things that I love to get involved with have all blossomed really from that conversation and that first investment piece there.
And that's incredible. And so in looking back on it, and for those members of the service that are like, well, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't. Can you talk a little bit about the incredible VA loan opportunity with up to a fourplex, I believe, that you can get? Is it literally 100% financing for military members?
Yeah, it can be, absolutely. Zero down for a fourplex that's one of those keys I wish I would have known 20 years ago.
Right.
If I would have known that you could buy as a second lieutenant a fourplex and rent out the other 3 units to your buddies or to other families, or live in while you house hacked one of them and renovated it if it needed it, and then a year later move on and do your next fourplex with that VA loan and just recapturing some of that equity. Man, I would have 24 plexes at this time. But
yes,
that's one of those pieces that I learned a little too late, when I had kids and more stuff than we wanted, and just didn't get to capitalize on that capability. And so I wanted to make sure that I passed that along to every new officer, every new Marine that I met who had the desire to get into investing. Said, take a look at this fourplex market and the opportunity it affords you to get into this property, almost zero money down. And a year from now, you can repeat the process and do it all over again.
I tell you what, it's incredible. In the analog in the civilian market, as the FHA loan is still pretty incredible. It's not quite as cool as the VA loan because it's about 3.5% down But
Sure.
if that would work for you, that FHA loan is really pretty great too. If you've got W-2 income, I think it's a lot harder if you've got entrepreneurial type income, but for sure it's still doable from what I understand. It's just it's a little more tricky, but such an incredible way to get started if that opportunity would work for your lifestyle for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you, Douglas, there's some great resources out there now from military members, active duty service members who are doing these concepts, who are taking these concepts and putting them to place. I've read a couple books from individuals that were house hacking fourplexes. There's a guy out here I actually met with just yesterday in Denver, Drew Morris, who's a real estate agent who's got some phenomenal experience and institutional wisdom in how to do these things. So, I recommend anybody that's trying to get into this space, especially service members, man, just read up on a book or two, and you'll have the foundation that you need to really step off with confidence.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part too, is just that taking the leap on buying that first property. That's so intimidating because there's so much unknown to it, and it's so funny. And once you get around people that have built a portfolio of 2,000 units, they just kind of like, is that hard? What? It becomes kind of almost trite. It's like, no, that's easy. You just like they would buy a fourplex like somebody buys a candy bar, and it's like interesting how the mindset shift changes so much along the way once you get frost. It's like that there's like a threshold or a barrier, and once you push through that barrier, it's like, oh well, it was challenging. There were things that are about it, but in
Right.
the end, it's just like everything else that's unknown, and it's just a little intimidating and scary. But once you push through it, and again, I cannot recommend having people around you that are doing same or similar makes a huge
Oh,
difference.
that's key. That's
Huge
key.
difference.
And I look at my experience and really over the last 3 or 4 years, it's blossomed only because of people that I've met on LinkedIn and connected with and been able to share my story with them and them share their story with me. I mean, I can think of several individuals, one of which is Maurice Philogene. I mean, he is a tremendous voice on LinkedIn
Yes.
about passive income and creating a lifestyle that you want. But a year and a half ago, I sat down with him over the phone and just started picking his brain and asking him questions. And at the time, I had not gotten into a single syndication. And you're right, they make it look easy when you see people on their LinkedIn post that says closing on another deal or
Yeah.
just got locked in another 200 unit apartment complex.
Yeah.
But it's the individuals like Maurice for me that were really able to break it down and give you actionable steps to take bite-sized chunks out of that pie and really put action forth to get you started.
Yeah, and I remember Brandon Turner, Beardy Brandon, for those of you who don't know Brandon, really had a great concept that I think is really helpful too. You just try to do it in terms of don't think success or failure, think test, operate, text, exit, basically. Just take that next step and push as far as you can, and then you might not be successful on that deal, but you keep pushing further down the road, and then eventually you'll break through. And it is a process. I don't know that I've ever met anyone that said, okay, on my first deal, the very first phone call they picked up, they talked to a broker that was honest, and they liked the broker, and they got a good deal, and the seller liked them, and they lived happily ever after. It just doesn't work that way. And there is a learning process, but completely agree. And I will say, and this is categorically the case, real estate investors are, to my knowledge, some of the best people in the world. I'm saying this because I love the people generally. And trust me, I practiced law. I was surrounded by a bunch of jerky lawyers, and I can tell you the attitude difference between lawyers and real estate investors is night and day difference. It's like the generally someone along the way has helped them out, and almost categorically, I'd say, not everyone. You got some of the private equity guys that aren't as accessible, but like a Main Street entrepreneur is a pretty happy person, and they're probably like, oh yeah, you could easily do this. I did it. It's easy. and come, and be generous with their information. And I found that as a general rule, most real estate investors will give you tips and tricks if you ask nicely. They really will.
Yeah, absolutely. Douglas, hearing you talk about, the trials and errors as you start out, it's like the OODA loop for real
Yes,
estate, right?
absolutely. And again, turning that, and I guess refining the loop is maybe a way of thinking about it. You
Yeah.
keep getting more information. You run through the routine. Well, it didn't work this time. Let's keep probing the opponent, which is in this case a fourplex that you'd like to have on your schedule E of your real estate owned. And so you have to probe the problem until you break through. And it really is interesting how, if once you think of it as not success or failure but learning, it's just a learning loop.
Yep.
And it's so incredible.
Absolutely.
And John, now what is your current real estate interest currently today? What are you working on these days?
Oh man, Douglas, it's been another jump into something, that's unknown. I
Yes.
jumped into the Marine Corps and aviation with little to no experience, little to no understanding. But I was really fortunate. 6 months ago, I got involved in the military skill bridge program.
Mm,
Skill bridge program allows a transitioning service member who's getting out of the military to go potentially work for an employer for 6 months, up to
mm,
6 months.
mm.
Um, and you don't take a paycheck from the internship. You continue to get paid by your service.
Oh,
And
nice.
so I was able to take that opportunity, and I linked up with my now partner, Benjamin Myers. He has a 3-person company called Eberly Myers, and they were doing most of their real estate development in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Oh, great.
At the time, I was in Washington, D.C., and able to drive back and forth, and really take advantage of that internship, really learn the things that Benjamin was put into practice. I definitely don't have the education that he has. He graduated from George Mason University and has a master's degree in commercial real estate development.
Mm,
But just able to see the real world interactions with architects and engineers and civil engineers, and see that firsthand, and seeing his passion on a daily basis, and seeing that passion to create really got me excited. And as of a month and a half ago, we have a commercial real estate development company called Aspire Development Group. And I have 2 other partners. Benjamin Myers is one of them, and Eli Davis out of Edmond, Oklahoma, who's an Army veteran, is the other partner.
that's
And
incredible. And this is based out of the Colorado Springs now. Is that right?
so our address is out of Oklahoma,
Mm.
but we are currently pursuing properties in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, and Colorado Springs. So
That's outstanding. Congrats on the new firm. I can't tell you how excited I am. That is one of my core passions as well, real estate development. And I love what you mentioned about the commercial real estate master's degree. I think they are incredible programs, and in fact, I almost wish I did that instead of law. University of Denver has a great one, for example. Really great one at USC. There's a couple really great real estate specific master's degree. I think they're great coming out of college. Now, if you're already have a career in what I will think, John, and this is what I'm going to drive at. I think your career in the military and as a leader in the Marine Corps is almost probably like almost priceless in this field, because literally it's team building at its core. And I think that, again, we can get tied up in the academics. I don't think the hard part is the academic side of real estate development generally. It's more about problem solving. Guess what? The town council just voted 4-3 against your project. What do we have to do to reiterate, to fix the problem. And again, it's back into the OODA loop. We're back into, okay, well, we have to reorient, we have to reattack this problem. And it's a constant problem solving game. And I feel like with leadership and your military experience as a leader in what you learn from that, and again, academically, I just don't think it's that hard. Again, I love my commercial real estate friends, and I don't mean this as an insult, but it's that part of the business. It's just not okay. We're not creating algorithms here. We're not engineering some major breakthrough software. We've been building buildings for a long, long time, and in commercial real estate, syndication is been around for at least 70 years, from what I understand. So commercial real estate syndication, there's just nothing new about it under the sun. But what is unique, and what I feel like, John, you're just so well suited for incredible success, is just the team building aspect of it.
Well, Douglas, you're right. The team is what is instrumental. And Eli and I are blessed to have Benjamin on our team because he has the degree, he has the experience, he has done multiple projects. In fact, his latest project was turning a small multifamily unit into 33 units there in Columbia. And to see him in action, there is a piece of that team. He is a piece of the team that we can't easily recreate. But in the same sense, he has Eli, who is very action oriented, who's very heads down, get the job done. And I tell the two of them that I'm just a hustler trying to figure out where I fit into this team. But you're right. You've got to have some intellect. You've got to have some action oriented people. You have to have a good combination of a lot of traits to really make the team well-rounded. And I've got so many mentors in my life that have represented this team, have represented that you can have a marriage between two types of individuals that just really work together and make for a very strong company, very strong foundation.
And again, I think that's another thing too that I think is a common theme that we're already hammering on this podcast. But most people from the outside don't realize, well, and especially if they've had single family experience, it's okay. It's easy to be a single family landlord with one person, easily doable. Commercial real estate, I think it's insanity to try to be one person that does it all in commercial real estate. Now we start talking to development, then that would just be like, unless you have the wherewithal or the trust fund to hire a ton of talent around you to do it as one person, is just not a great plan. Because you really do. You need a deal person. You need a execution person in terms of the project. You need a capital raiser. I mean, you almost all commercial real estate needs that. So it's almost per se a team sport.
Yeah. Well, Eli, our partner out of Edmond, he has done and has a lot of experience in multifamily management, asset management, and managing properties. And so he really, really fits a great niche for us because he's got a background in commercial management, residential management, private, management. So he's got that experience under his belt, and that's where he is bringing some incredible value to us, to Benjamin and I. So we feel like a well-rounded team. We're looking for a great capital raiser to help us out, especially in this market right now with interest rates the way they are, and 3 projects on the books that aren't necessarily cash flowing right at the start. So yeah. It's a difficult game, but I'm blessed to have the military experience I have that teaches me to kind of keep my head down and take a couple no's, because eventually with a couple no's you're going to get a yes here and there, and that's where the difference is made.
I completely agree. And with the financing scenario, the banks are they're awfully skittish right now. So getting funding and fighting that out, it's weird how things change so quickly. But for sure, having that exact mentality of like we're just going to keep grinding it out, and we'll find something eventually here and break through.
Yeah, that's what we think of it as, is a slow moving train. It's, you're going to see deals come, you're going to see deals go. You hop on, you hop off. Sometimes it's months before you get any action, and then there's a bunch of actions. It's the hurry up and wait mentality that I learned so well in the Marine Corps. But we are anxious to see a couple of these projects take off, and a couple of them start growing, and see those partners come in, those equity partners that we are excited to get on to the projects as well. So,
well, I will say this: you have a tremendous collection of resumes, and I feel confident in saying this. I think it's going to be a very successful venture. I'm really very excited for you. And to that end, John, if people are interested in work with you, how's the best way to reach out to you?
well, really, LinkedIn is the only social media I'm on, and that's stemming from prior service. And you just kind of got to keep your nose clean, and the best way to
Yes,
do that is limit your
just
exposure.
not be on there.
So LinkedIn, just search for me, John Ballenger.
And it will be down in the notes of the podcast here, guys, on YouTube here. It will be down in there as well.
Yeah, and my two partners, Benjamin Myers is just an experienced developer. He's got a ton of knowledge, and he's more than happy to speak to anybody. And then Eli Davis on the single family, multifamily, Airbnb property management space. He's a little more time limited, but I'm sure if anybody want to reach out to him as well, he would take that call.
That sounds great, John. Thank you so much for being on. We look forward to having you on once we get some projects in the pipeline and find out how things are going.
Of course. Well, thanks for having me, Douglas. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon, Colonel.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye.